you everyone for joining us today. And I should say good afternoon and good evening as well, because I know that we are being joined from several different time zones today. And I'm very grateful to those of you who have stayed up late or got up very early for this. So this is our third webinar in the Caritas Celebrates Women series. My name is Stephanie McGillivray and I'm the Officer Promoting Women's Leadership here at Caritas Internationalist. This is a month-long initiative that we have been doing in order to demonstrate the role of women as builders of dialogue, hope, solidarity, and the future. So far in the series, we've seen how women as builders of dialogue and hope play really crucial roles in contexts of conflict, disaster, migration, and health, to name just a few of the core issues that we've discussed so far. In today's webinar, we'll be hearing from Caritas in 3 regions, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. And this will be about the role women play as builders of solidarity in the context of caring for the poor and care for our common home. I would like to extend my thanks in advance to all of the speakers, including Her Excellency Chiara Porro, Ambassador of Australia to the Holy See, and Ms. Marta Pedrajas, Coordinator of the Section on Faith and Development from the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. It's really important to us that we reach and collaborate with a really wide audience, so I'm very grateful for this collaboration. Please note that if you require translation, we do have simultaneous translation into English, French, and Spanish, and this is available via Zoom. And I'd like to thank the interpreters and also our technical team for making that possible. So, without further ado, I would like to hand over and introduce Kirsty Robertson, who is the CEO of Caritas Australia and a member of the Caritas Internationalist Committee for Women's Leadership, Equality and Participation. And Kirsty will be chairing and moderating the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone to this webinar. We'll start this meeting this evening by pausing to remember that we are always
Sorry,
in
Kirsty,
God's...
we can't hear you, but I think that our team is now hopefully making it possible to hear you. Possibly your headphones, maybe. I don't know if they're...
Would you like me to try again now?
Would you like me to try again? So others can hear you. We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I have tested.
And my staff can hear me. They're texting me saying they can hear me. Actually, yes, I'm getting lots of messages saying they can hear me. So, Stephanie, maybe the issue is at your end. It's very reassuring that you can hear
Kirsty,
me.
I think it's just us who can't hear you. So do carry on and we'll fix it from our end. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I must admit I'm very pleased that it's not a technical issue at my end, seeing as I'm at home right now. So let us go back to starting this meeting by pausing to remember that we are always in God's presence. And it's into that stillness that I would like to share with you an extract from a beautiful prayer written by Patty Faulkner, who's a sister of the Good Samaritans and an amazing Australian woman. The present moment is sacred ground, the home of my country, my heart. God is in this place and I did not know. The invitation to pause, to notice, to be, to belong. The present moment, grace-filled, surprise-charged with miracles aplenty. It is the God moment, the gathering of past and future. The present moment is an invitation to listen and hear God speaks her word of love. And it's into that love and that prayer-filled stillness that I start the meeting today. And in doing so, I recognise the gatherings have taken place here in Australia over many thousands of years. And I'm calling in today from my home in Sydney, which sits on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay my respects to Gadigal elders past, present and emerging. So before we get started with our speakers today, I'm really looking forward to hearing from them, and I hope you are too. And what I would just like to remind everybody is you are muted, but there is a chat box which is available for you to comment and to ask questions of the speakers today, because we very much want this to be a dialogue and an opportunity to hear from all of you as well. So we're joined together today on World Water Day to highlight the significant presence, participation and leadership of women across our wonderful Confederation in care for the poor and care for our common home. And so this webinar will include testimonials from countries who experience frequent natural disasters and social instability. And what we're really hoping is that by sharing some of the stories, we'll continue our dialogue around how the Confederation can work for the integral development of the poor, the marginalised and the vulnerable. So I'd like to start by introducing Masamba Mbanga, the Advocacy Officer at Caritas Internationalist.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm pleased to participate in this panel, and also the fact that today is World Water Day, and this webinar will highlight the significant role that women have in taking care of our common home and also the poor. My distinguished speakers and ladies and gentlemen, too often women bear the hardest burden of economic disparities, of social injustices, and feature marginally in policy and decision-making globally. And there is no exception when it comes to the harsh realities that climate change is having on the poorest regions that include Asia and Africa. And also noting the fact that climate change has worsened gender inequality in most parts of the world, with the global poverty rate estimated at 79% in rural areas. And women are particularly vulnerable due to the lower capital accumulation. And in addition, the financial, social, and cultural barriers often mean that women do not have the same access as men. And the stories shared from Asia, Africa, and MENA regions show how women are affected by water scarcity. Today being World Water Day, everyone's concern is the fact that water is scarce and there are serious water insecurities. Most of the times when there's this crisis, women suffer the burden the more. When there are water challenges, women take it personal, and women have to walk long distances to actually go and look for water. They even have to stand in long queues just for them to find water that can be used for domestic use as well as drinking water. And also noting the fact that this year's International Women's Day did recognize the contributions of women and girl leaders in terms of how they're involved in fighting for sustainability in the face of the ongoing climate change. However, despite their crucial role in agri-food systems, women faced with enormous challenges, including exclusion from decision-making, denial of essential productive resources such as land, water, credit, information, technologies, and disregard for their deep knowledge of the local context. One of the things to appreciate is the fact that women normally apply the indigenous knowledge that they have in responding to the ecological crisis. And so the question is, why can't we embrace the personal attachment that women have in terms of them applying the indigenous knowledge? Most of the families who are involved into agriculture, they are feeling the impacts of climate change in that their yields have reduced. But we have women who are involved in terms of ensuring that they use locally available resources for them to improve their yields. And also just noting the fact that when a household is food insecure, it is all consuming. It affects the family at the most basic level of human's requirements to survive, and makes everything beyond secure and basic nutrition unimaginable. And a woman suffers the more in a household. Further, the chronic food insecurity and the pressure that is imposed makes women experience physical, mental, and social challenges, and mostly it's seen in women. And just to highlight an example of the 2019-2020 drought that was experienced in Zambia in Africa, where actually women felt the burden the more. Women actually had to go outside, go in the forest, go and look for alternative sources of food for them to fend for their homes. They actually even had to look for wild fruits as a source of food for them to fend their houses. And also just to note the fact that most of the times when this happens, it actually takes a toll on the responsibility that women have at home in terms of them cooking and also taking care of their children. And this also just shows in terms of how women are vulnerable in terms of them responding to the ecological crisis. However, in as much as the future environment is frightening, it's not all grey. Women are showing remarkable resilience around the world. They are leading climate action movements, championing clean sources of energy, like we've seen within the Confederation, where a number of women actually are promoting energy efficient cookstoves. Women are also building alternative models of community that focus on sustainability and cooperation. And from the examples within the Confederation, women are also implementing initiatives that aim at ensuring that there's ecological sustainable management of water, which is both favorable for women and men. And also noting the fact that by equipping women with knowledge and empowering them, it gives women the confidence to be able to participate in decision making, and also give them better resources and access to inputs and technologies, which will make them have greater opportunities to taking care of our common home. And today, being World Water Day, Caritas is calling for a participatory approach in water management involving users, planners, and policymakers at different levels, recognizing the fact that both men and women need to be involved and have equal access to managing the water resources and the benefits that come from the sustainable water use. And this just shows that this solidarity is a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good and to the good of all and each individual. And just borrowing and quoting a quote that came from the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon when he was addressing participants at the 8th Institute State of the Planet meeting, where he said, "The world's women are the key to sustainable development, peace, and security." End of quote. And now everyone is talking about sustainable development, peace, and security. And the question is, where is a woman's voice? Where is a woman's participation? And just to cement this, in Laudato Si, the Holy Father notes that the human environment and the natural environment deteriorate together. We cannot adequately combat environmental degradation unless we affect causes related to human and social degradation. And when we're speaking social degradation, society comes in and the vulnerability of a woman is what is exposed. And with that said, I would want to end by stating that as women make up half of the world, their role in responding to the ecological crisis and contributing to socio-economic progress cannot be overemphasized. And what cannot be argued is the fact that empowering women is necessary to nourish the earth. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think, Masamba, for reminding us that while poverty has a woman's face, I think women often also are the holders of great solutions to many of the challenges that the world face today. Now I have the great honour of introducing Her Excellency Chiara Poro, the Australian Ambassador to the Holy See. Thanks, Chiara.
And thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you all today. And I'd like to express both my strong support and thanks to Caritas for organising this series of events on the role and contribution of women, drawing in voices from across the Caritas network, but also beyond. Today's focus, World Water Day, but also women as builders and protectors of our common home, is a topic particularly of relevance for the region that Australia is part of, the Pacific or Oceania. Both because water is so central for our region. We are dominated, of course, by the Great Pacific Ocean, which covers nearly a third of the globe, contains half of its waters, supplies more than a half of the world's tuna, and also contains 1/4 of the world's total coral reefs. But we're also a region that is severely affected by water insecurity as well. And we are also, of course, acutely feeling the effects of climate change, whether through extreme weather events like the recent floods in Australia, or through increasing sea level rises or ocean acidification, which is threatening the very existence of some of the smaller island states. Our region has the highest disaster risk and the highest exposure to extreme weather events out of all the regions in the world. And of course, we know from the data that women and other disadvantaged groups are disproportionately affected when the disasters or other climate threats hit. In fact, the research has shown that women are 14 times more likely than men to die in a disaster. And we saw this in 2014, when 95% of the deaths from flash flooding in the Solomon Islands were women. Women are more exposed to climate hazards because they're generally more dependent on natural resources and subsistence labor, and they're likely to have less capacity to respond to the changes in the climate, as Masamba was mentioning before, because they're more likely to have additional responsibilities, looking after the household or as caregivers. But we should not see women as just as passive victims. They have important knowledge and capabilities as the result of this direct lived experience. They're on the front lines, and they can be effective and powerful leaders and change makers, including to prevent the worst effects of the crises. So to effectively sustain and protect our common home, we need to ensure women have the agency and that their participation is supported, resourced, and valued. In our region, in the Pacific, women are hardworking, creative, and resilient. They're the pillars of their societies, and they make significant contributions to their economies. But they're still outnumbered in paid employment, or they're significantly underpaid, and they hold too few leadership positions. While globally, for example, women hold around 1/4 of positions in parliaments, in the Pacific, there's only 6% of parliamentarians who are women. Australia has been working closely with our partners in the Pacific to support women in achieving their full potential. And there are 3 aspects which I wanted to touch on today, which I think are really critical in supporting women. The first is the need to change attitudes. In the Pacific, like in many other parts of the world, women are still too often victims of violence. In the Pacific, up to 60% of women and girls have experienced violence at the hands of partners or family members, 60%. This obviously severely affects the well-being of these women, but also further entrenches their exclusion from society and their ability to contribute. Over the past 10 years, Australia has been running a program called Pacific Women, which has been very much focused on enhancing women's agency by ending violence, providing economic empowerment and other opportunities for leadership and decision-making. The most successful outcomes over this past 10 years have been in transforming attitudes and behaviours. For example, projects in the highlands of Papua New Guinea saw a reduction of 90% of violence against those who participated in these workshops or activities. Women were then able to participate more fully in their communities, their views were listened to more, and their perspectives respected. The second aspect is the need to build skills. And here I'd like to mention a few different initiatives. The first is one called Water for Women, another Australian government initiative which has been running for the past 5 years and is of course highly relevant to the topic today. It's been really focused on involving people, all people in communities, so men, women, marginalised groups, people with disabilities, and achieving more effective outcomes in water sanitation and hygiene projects. Simple things like plumbing training workshops for both men and women to maintain toilets, for example, or involving women in WASH assessments and planning so their needs are met too, or improving community level knowledge of water catchment systems and how they might be affected by rising sea levels. At a different level, we've also been running training programs, for example, for Pacific women climate negotiators. This has been going on since 2016, and it's been quite effective in equipping these government officials effectively with climate policy knowledge, diplomacy and negotiation skills, and leadership training, enabling them to be more effectively represent their nation's interests and participate in UNFCCC negotiations. At the more systemic level, and this is the final initiative I wanted to mention, we launched last year with UN Women, the Women's Resilience to Disasters Program, which has been focused on working with women to find local solutions to preparedness and early warning systems, to develop more resilient livelihoods and businesses for women, and to ensure appropriate response services and products are developed for when they are needed. And the final aspect I wanted to mention, in addition to changing attitudes and building skills, is very much creating networks and sharing information, which I think is critical to empowering women. Here, there are two significant resources which I want to mention. The first is related to the Pacific Women Program I mentioned earlier, and it's the next phase now that we're progressing. The Pacific Women Program was successful in connecting 190 partners and over 180 initiatives across 14 countries in the Pacific, which was effectively one of the largest global commitments to gender equality in the world. The program, so of course there was a lot of resources and expertise that's been accumulated over the past 10 years. And now this program, which is going to be called, which has been launched and will be called Pacific Women Lead, will be managed through the regional organization in the Pacific called the Pacific Community, and will be really focused in the first phases in sharing information through the Pacific Data Hub. So it's another resource which I'd highly recommend. And very much focused on using these resources to further strengthen women's leadership throughout the region. Another thing which was also launched last month is and linked to the Women's Resilience in Disasters program, is the Women's Resilience Knowledge Hub, which is a one-stop shop on all gender-related disaster and climate resilience knowledge. It's really aimed again at consolidating all the resources, best practices and critical tools, placing women's leadership center stage and providing a platform to amplify women's voices. Finally, I wanted to very quickly describe one project which I became aware of when I was posted to the Pacific prior to arriving here in Rome, and which really touched me and I think really shows the value of and the importance of the topics that we're discussing today. It's about market infrastructure in the Pacific, which is so central to women's existence. And often in many of these Pacific Island countries, the women don't have much say over the market infrastructure that they utilize day in and day out. In 2016, Australia decided to fund the redevelopment of the Gizo market in the Solomon Islands. And what we did is work closely. Well, we put the architects, the designers, the project designers in touch with the women producers, so they could say what they needed for their structures. So these women's needs were really incorporated right at the design phase, including things such as disability access. And also, at the women's request, particular features to respond to climate projections were incorporated into the design of this market infrastructure. So there was a seawall that was built to protect the market from storm surges and sea level rises. And the beams of the market were reinforced to withstand wind speeds of a Category 5 cyclone. There was a sustainable water supply and sanitation facilities that were built, and affordable, secure, clean energy supply was provided as well. So this means that with a relatively small investment, I think it cost around $3 million, women producers were now equipped, even in the face of a disaster, to get back on their feet quickly and re-engage in their livrlighoods and sustain their communities. And it was a project that had, both this
That's why I said again, we can have that aside conversation. Let's look at
both this climate lens as well as this gender responsive approach to it. So just to conclude, and sorry if I've spoken too long, I just wanted to share a few of these initiatives today, and there are of course many others around the world, to both highlight how women are leading the charge on climate change adaptation, but also to acknowledge this widely. Today's theme for World War Today is making it's about groundwater and the fact that groundwater is out of sight, but it's a hidden treasure that we must value because it's so critical for our ecosystems and the sustainability of our future. I would argue that we need to do the same for women, who are a fundamental pillar, too often not acknowledged or supported, in caring and protecting for our common home. Let's make women more visible and able to shape and lead the response to these key challenges of our time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I think it was of particular interest to me to hear your reflection on the challenges of women within the Pacific, but also I think really interesting to hear some of the good news stories, because that is the beauty of the Caritas Confederation, is that I think we are a good news story for both the church and the world. So thank you for sharing with us today. I'm now going to welcome Marta Pedrajas from the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development to speak to us. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you, all of you there in Caritas Internationalist. I'm very happy to be here with you. It's a privilege to talk on behalf of Sor Alessandra. She cannot attend the event. And Cardinal Czerny is also attending different forums on the Water Day. But thank you. I'm very pleased and the privilege to be here with you and to share with you also the work we are doing in the dicastery as a framework, as a proposal to join with all of you in this role of the women as a builders of solidarity in the Laudato Si vision. And I want to start, I don't know if I can share my screen a little bit. I try, because I have only three slides that I would like to share with you, if I can, not this one. Just to put the framework that we are working on in this dicastery for integral and human development. But the starting point is this vision of a turbulent and wounded world. Because we know before the pandemic that we were in a turbulent world. The world was already in crisis with different humanitarian crises. The people from Caritas knows very well, because we had 6 humanitarian crises in 2015, the year of the SDGs and the Agenda 2030. There was a big crisis in the world. And so there was a lot of volatility, a lot of shifts in the global international environment. And in the middle of that, we agree, we could have an international agreement and we can work together. But in our vision, with the pandemic, with the COVID Commission, with the COVID virus and all that, we have seen a strong movement in this world, because as the Pope Francis has highlighted very well in Laudato Si and especially in Fratelli Tutti, we were building the world in false securities. We have the land where we were building this world of solidarity, globalization, and that was false, because we don't have these strong values we thought we had. And we have, for the recovery, we have to rebuild together from a strong values, to join together to put the land where we want to build when we talked about prepare the future. So we want, with this turbulence, hit it also by the pandemic, but we have also this poverty that we already have before, and we are, very well and very much better than I, these new forms of poverty. We have the word of the outcast, the throwaway word. We have the last mile approach. The last mile is this strong, extreme poverty that is still there. We have almost 1 billion people living in extreme poverty. And with the COVID and with the pandemic, we know that they are falling back into poverty. So we really were in a bad path, in a slow path to finish poverty. And with these consequences of the pandemic, we're falling back. So we need to tackle the new forms of poverty. We need to be there. And also in the middle income countries, this is very important, because 80% of the poor people are in middle income countries. So, and especially women are in middle income countries is living in extreme poverty, because when we do the average the multidimensional poverty and these average indexes we have, we don't find this extreme poverty. We don't have this special multidimensional poverty that we need to tackle to finish poverty. So we have these new forms of poverty that we also need a new vision to tackle them. We have this global inequality increasing also in the world, but as the Pope Francis has also highlighted in Fratelli Tutti, we have discovered now our inability to work together. And we have seen this not only with the management of the pandemic, but also with the vaccines, no? The lack of solidarity, the lack of a common project with these vaccines and this solution for everyone, no? Not only for the rich countries, but also for everyone. So we need to rebuild this way of working together. We have also many other problems that we had before also, and this is still there, not the globalization of indifference, demographic challenges, urbanization, technology. Technology is really very good. It's like us today, no? We can be together, we can connect together, but also are bringing technology, more isolation, loneliness, especially with youth. The young people are very affected by technology, and this is very important for education and for many institutions to work on this role of technology for the young people. We need also the institutions, the governance, social cohesion. We are talking all the time, the new social pact, the new global pact to reshape the future. But we know also that the institutions are under stress, and we have also a lack of leadership. The Pope Francis also specifically talk about this lack of leadership, no? Because we need to work together to have a common project, a common solution, but we don't have this leadership that can bring us together. And I think here, I will talk later, the women have a special role to work on this need of leadership. And we have, of course, this global public goods. This is really the big framework we have always there, no? This climate change, the importance of the biodiversity, the limits of the planet. We need to take care of this because it's our global public good, and we need to address also with the vision of the common good, because it's very important that we see all us together in this tackling these global issues. So this is like the panorama, how we see the world, what is happening there, and what we offer, what we can do there. We can bring, we can offer, our role is to service human and integral human development. So this is like a summary of this of this panorama. No, I have already highlighted this turbulence, false securities, the scarcity, the outcast, the inability to work together, the indifference, individualism, lack of the leadership, and the need to tackle global public goods and the common good. And what are we doing in the dicastery? What are we doing, and what can we specifically offer here, and how can we join together? And especially, not only because the women are affected by all this, but also because they are protagonists of the solutions, and we want to bring together here in this specific project that I want to explain now. This is well, you know very well, the COVID Commission is not only a commission that we have in the dicastery, it's a way of working. This is the importance, no? Because we have 5 working groups, the task force, the priorities, health, food, work. And this is the year we are specifically prioritizing work for all project. Work for all project starts by listening, connecting, and inspiring. And this is the listening to the local church, listening what is happening in the field, what is happening in your places that you are already all around the world, how we are facing the problem of work, the access to work, and the human right to work. And especially for women, because they are very affected. Everyone is affected by the lack of work because of these consequences of the pandemic and all that, but especially women. No? We need to take into account this, not only because they are affected, but also because they are protagonists of the solution. And this is the big priority, not only for the COVID Commission, but also for all the dicastery. You know? This is the year we are trying to prioritize the work for all project. And Work for All project also enters in the work and development field that is more my role in this dicastery, the area of faith and development, where we are working with vulnerabilities, with social exclusion. When I was talking the last mile approach, this extreme poverty, multidimensional poverty, very important to identify where are really the people in need, that many times in the average, in the indexes are hidden, and we need to see them. The inequalities, and trying to support and to work with local church in development projects, especially focusing in work this year. Very important, and I'm sure you know very well, is Laudato Si platform, because we are listening the cry of the poor, the cry of the earth. But what do we offer? We have this Laudato Si platform that I'm sure you already know, because we have these 7 goals, starting with the cry of the poor, the cry of the earth, the spiritual ecology, the ecological economy, the ecological conversion. So how we enter all together in this Laudato Si platform is also the role of all the agents that are working there for 7 years to move and to work on this common good as a vision, to put all together the global public good that this is, especially to take care of the planet as a creation. And integral security is also very important for our dicastery, because we are not talking about political, military, but also security related with an ethical, juridical, and socioeconomic vision. So as integral security that affects everywhere, especially women that are very affected by the new technologies, the artificial intelligence, the digitalization are affected the women in her role in the new world, but and to take care and to have this focus on security is very important for youth, for women, but as I mentioned, to have like a global vision of all the security related with other topics. I'm entering one moment in these values that are very important for the role of women, because this is, if you remember, the catechesis of the Pope in Healing the World. He was amazing catechesis with the faith, charity, hope, talking about human dignity, the preferential option of the poor, the universal destination of good, solidarity. But we can focus on the values that are behind all this, and that the special values for the women, because we can, we're talking about the project Work for All, Laudato Si platform, that is starting out with listening, connecting, and inspiring. And this is the woman, the role of the woman: listening, connecting, and inspiring. We are talking about the world of the outcast, the scartati, the need of inclusion is very important, because we are putting many people on site now. When we are talking on leaving no one behind, many people are left behind, many people, women, old people, people with disabilities, children, the youth. So the special vision of inclusion is also a special value of the role of women in all this framework. So listening, connecting, inspiring, prioritizing inclusion, care for the common home. So we don't take into account that the planet is there, and starting for the ecological conversion, because all of us need this ecological conversion to tackle these global public goods from the beginning, from the heart, from this conversion. And the role of women are also very important and has a special value to take this care of the common home. And also the role of leadership, because we all know that the role of the women and the leadership, the way of leadership is different from the men. So I think the complementarity is very important. So to specify, to prioritize the leadership of the women because we are talking about these values of listening, connecting, inspiring, inclusion. So this is the leadership that we need, and we need to inspire women to be there, because it's the specific genius of the women to lead in this common home. And well, this is for the Laudato Si platform because I wanted to highlight the different actors. I'm sure you know very well that, but to specify this project with the Laudato Si, we are taking projects and the proposals from different actors for 7 years. So we have families, parishes and dioceses, educational institutions, hospitals, economic sector, organizations, groups, and religious orders. So everyone that can identify with one of these actors, please contact with Laudato Si platform because we are taking and putting all together this vision, this common vision to take care of the planet. And this is for now, and I'm here available to stay with all of you to be part of all the panel and to participate in the debate and still be here to listening to all the proposals we have here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marta. I genuinely just learnt a lot, and I'm sure there are many people in the audience who feel the same. I think your panorama really helped me anyway, unpack a little bit that lens of the social doctrine of the church. So it's much appreciated for your sharing here today. We have 3 more speakers, and then at the end of those speakers, we hopefully will have some time for questions of our panelists here today. So I'm going to move on now and welcome Abe Constantin Serre, who's the Secretary General of Caritas Burkina Faso.
Merci bien à Kirsty. Merci à tous les participants à ce panel. Voilà, avant tout, je vous dis merci de nous avoir associés donc, à ce panel. Mon intervention va se faire en français. Le témoignage que je vais donner va porter sur le rôle clé des femmes dans l'engagement de l'OCADES Caritas Burkina, mais mieux dans l'engagement donc des Caritas du Sahel pour la protection de l'environnement, l'agroécologie, la protection des plus pauvres et les marginalisés, et aussi l'accès à l'eau, et aussi leur rôle dans les communautés comme levier de solidarité et de mobilisation et sensibilisation. Et je fais cette intervention avant tout en communion avec le groupe de travail de Caritas Internationalist pour le Sahel, en communion aussi avec notre zone de la CERAO, où la plupart donc, des pays du Sahel se trouvent, et en communion aussi avec notre région Caritas Africa. Disons que la tendance à une récurrente pénurie alimentaire et à la malnutrition qui sont conséquentes aux sécheresses et aux inondations devenues cycliques a amené à faire de la sécurité alimentaire la préoccupation centrale du groupe de travail de Caritas Internationalist à sa création en 2009. Cependant, il faut dire que la connexion de cette question avec celle de l'eau, de l'environnement et de l'agroécologie, de la protection des plus pauvres et des marginalisés est évidente. Tout d'abord, une bonne nutrition n'est pas envisageable sans l'accès à de l'eau potable. Ensuite, une production agro-silvo-pastorale suffisante à même de contribuer à assurer la sécurité alimentaire dans les pays du Sahel n'est pas envisageable sans la maîtrise de l'eau de production. Il faut noter encore que les chocs, les cycles, les tendances en matière de précipitation, donc la variabilité pluviométrique, la répétition régulière des phénomènes extrêmes que sont les poches de sécheresse et les excès de précipitation, la réduction progressive de la période humide. Donc, ces chocs, cycles et tendances ont un lien avec l'évolution de l'environnement, marqué par l'avancée donc du Sahara. Enfin, disons qu'au fur et à mesure que les problèmes se complexifient, plus de personnes deviennent pauvres et marginalisées et ont besoin alors donc de la solidarité. Et donc, c'est vraiment heureux qu'en ce jour, nous parlons, nous fêtons, où nous avons la journée donc de l'eau, journée internationale de l'eau, que nous puissions parler donc des femmes, de leur rôle, voilà, dans l'engagement des Caritas pour la protection de l'environnement, de l'agroécologie et de l'accès aussi à l'eau. Disons qu'à cause de tout ce que je viens de dire, l'OCADES Caritas Burkina et les Caritas du Sahel, dans le cadre donc, du groupe de travail de Caritas Internationalist, ont élargi le thème de la sécurité alimentaire très vite aux questions donc, de la protection de l'environnement, de l'agroécologie et de la protection des plus pauvres et marginalisés, notamment les personnes en mobilité. Je parle donc des migrants, des réfugiés, des personnes déplacées internes. Des actions globales avec une approche plus holistique ont été envisagées comme les programmes de développement intégrés. L'accès à l'eau potable, à l'eau de production, à l'hygiène et à l'assainissement, à la protection de l'environnement sont ainsi abordés dans une même dynamique. De même, l'on s'adresse avant tout aux communautés les plus reculées et qui sont exclues de bien des systèmes. La conduite de ces actions sous forme de programmes ou projets, en plus d'embrasser les secteurs cristallisant les problématiques du Sahel, a intégré la protection de la dignité des plus pauvres et marginalisés. Disons que dans ces actions des Caritas du Sahel, la sélection donc des partenaires à la base, que sont les bénéficiaires, repose sur le respect de la dignité de chaque personne humaine et l'option préférentielle donc de l'Église pour les plus pauvres. Ce sont ces valeurs qui ont éclairé toujours les choix des personnes bénéficiaires donc des actions entrant dans les différents domaines et qui sont faits sous forme donc de programmes ou de projets de développement intégrés. Par ailleurs, disons que les femmes jouent un rôle clé dans cet engagement des Caritas du Sahel sur les thématiques donc, de l'eau, de la protection de l'environnement, de l'agroécologie et de la protection des plus pauvres et marginalisés. Et de façon générale, disons que l'on peut dire que les femmes sont des leviers de solidarité, de mobilisation, sensibilisation dans la communauté en ce qui concerne donc ces thèmes dont je viens de parler. Maintenant, en quoi les femmes jouent un rôle clé dans les thématiques majeures donc, du Sahel dont je viens de parler. Disons qu'au Burkina Faso et dans les différentes Caritas du Sahel, des milliers de villages sont accompagnés à avoir accès à de l'eau potable et à mieux gérer leur environnement à travers la délimitation donc, de forêts villageoises ou la construction d'ouvrages d'accès à l'eau comme les puits à grand diamètre ou les forages d'eau. De même, des centaines donc, de milliers de producteurs sont accompagnés à pratiquer une agriculture écologique à travers plusieurs approches, comme l'utilisation de la fumure organique ou la CES-DRS. La CES-DRS, c'est la conservation des eaux et des sols, la défense et la restauration des sols. Dans notre rapport annuel consolidé, au niveau donc de l'OCADES Caritas Burkina, qui porte aussi l'année 2020, on peut lire que sur les 51 091 producteurs qui ont été accompagnés sur des activités touchant l'environnement, il y a 32 113 qui sont des femmes. Les femmes constituent ainsi plus de 60% des personnes accompagnées dans le domaine donc, de l'environnement. Au niveau donc, de l'agriculture, donc tournée essentiellement vers l'agroécologie, comme je viens de le dire, dans le même rapport, dans notre rapport donc, annuel consolidé de 2020, on peut lire que parmi donc, les 46 972 personnes accompagnées en 2020, 28 023 sont des femmes, donc soit près de 60% encore en ce qui concerne donc l'agroécologie. Donc le rôle clé des femmes est encore plus évident dans un secteur où elles ont une prépondérance depuis la nuit des temps dans le Sahel, voilà, celui de l'eau. Cependant, nous devons nous réjouir surtout de l'évolution de ce rôle des femmes. Dans les différentes communautés du Sahel, les points d'eau se mettent en place avec l'implication des femmes aujourd'hui. De profonds changements se sont amorcés dans la démarche suite à une lumineuse prise de conscience qu'elles ne sont pas seulement les premiers usagers de ces infrastructures, mais qu'elles en assurent la durabilité, en assurant l'hygiène autour des points d'eau et aujourd'hui en assurant la réparation même de ces points d'eau. Nos statistiques à l'OCADES Caritas Burkina montrent que les femmes sont majoritaires dans le secteur de l'eau potable, ce qui semble normal, mais aussi dans le secteur de l'eau de production. Notre rapport annuel consolidé donc, de 2020 indique que sur les 34 433 personnes accompagnées dans le secteur de l'eau de production, 18 296 sont des femmes, soit plus de 50%. Donc, les femmes sont ainsi grandement impliquées donc, et jouent un rôle clé, un rôle de leadership dans les actions que nous menons autour donc, des thèmes clés au niveau donc, du Sahel. Maintenant, je voudrais achever en disant que les femmes aussi sont un levier de solidarité et de mobilisation, sensibilisation dans les communautés où elles vivent aujourd'hui. Ici, je voudrais prendre simplement 2 exemples pour étayer mes propos. Aujourd'hui, grâce aux communautés d'épargne et de crédit interne, les CECI, ce sont des systèmes de tontine modernes, les femmes montrent le chemin de la mobilisation pour résoudre les questions essentielles dans les communautés au niveau du Sahel. Les CECI, comme je le disais, permettent une solidarité entre les pauvres. Les pauvres ont, grâce à ce système financier décentralisé, accès à un système financier pour pouvoir épargner, mais aussi pour pouvoir avoir des crédits pour travailler. Par ailleurs, la part d'investissement social que prévoient ces systèmes, ces communautés d'épargne de crédit interne, permet aux femmes, puisque généralement ces communautés sont constituées essentiellement de femmes, donc la part d'investissement social qui est prévue permet aux femmes dans plusieurs communautés villageoises de faire face aux réparations des ouvrages hydrauliques, évitant ainsi donc, les pénuries d'eau au niveau donc, des communautés. C'est le premier exemple de mobilisation, sensibilisation et de solidarité, d'intégration des personnes marginalisées que les femmes donc, nous laissent donc, dans les communautés au niveau donc, du Sahel. Le deuxième exemple que je voudrais citer, c'est que dans le Sahel aujourd'hui, la valorisation des produits forestiers non ligneux a fait que les femmes sont plus acquises à la préservation de l'environnement. Les femmes font la cueillette des fruits de ces forêts, que ce soit du karité, que ce soit du tamarin, que ce soit du pain de singe. Et ces fruits cueillis sont vendus en l'état, mais aujourd'hui de plus en plus transformés avant d'être mis sur le marché. Et là, dans le cadre d'associations féminines qui renforcent la solidarité entre les membres.
I think we might have lost connectivity there. Yes, I think we have. So we might take this opportunity to move on to our next speaker, who is Miss Fanau Leveni, the Programs Manager at Caritas Aotearoa, New Zealand. Fanau is a member of the Caritas Internationalist Humanitarian Committee, and she represents the Oceania region there. So we might just take this moment to welcome Fanau, and we'll come back to Abe if we get him back online soon. Thank you.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou, maloelele, and of course warm Pacific greetings from the Oceania region. Thank you for an incredible opportunity to be part of this panel tonight, and also, of course, the privilege to highlight the work of some of the remarkable women working in our region. And Kirsty, I just want to say that when you mentioned earlier that Caritas is a good news story, and I love that because essentially my intervention today is really sharing the good news about Caritas and the work that it's doing in the region, and the partners that we are incredible partners that we're so privileged to be able to work with. I do have to say though that being given 7 minutes to talk about the work of the incredible breadth of work that the women do was almost like being asked to choose who your favorite child is out of your children, just because there's so limited time and so much great work. And so I will absolutely try my best to do justice to the brilliant women that are working in our region. So first I will head down to the Kingdom of Tonga and give a massive shout out to Suliana Falemaka, who is the fearless director of Caritas Tonga. And I deliberately chose the word fearless because not so long ago, Suliana and her team, in fact, the entire nation, found themselves in a frightening and horrible situation where Tonga was devastated by a volcanic eruption, then a tsunami, then a thick blanket of ash that covered the entire nation for days. And Suliana, who has an all-women core team, showed just courageous leadership through their incredible ability to be able to mobilize almost immediately on the ground and provide relief to communities, despite the fact that there was absolutely no communications with the outside world. So while the outside world, that's us, Caritas New Zealand, as well as we were pretty much fearing the worst and scrambling to find ways to establish communications. Meanwhile, Suliana and her team were pretty much getting on with it and getting their hands dirty and responding. They were distributing prepositioned supplies into impacted communities. They were distributing supplies donated by parishes. They were working with the Catholic Church to provide much needed psychosocial support to those who were evacuated, and of course cleaning out the impacted and contaminated water tanks so that they could be filled with the water that was being brought in by the foreign aid vessels. They demonstrated incredible solidarity with those who were affected. They went beyond the data and the high-level analysis that outlines the needs of individual communities, knowing that often these kind of high-level analyses often overlook vulnerable and marginalised community groups. So instead, they use their huge engagement with these communities through the Caritas parish committees, which there's 14 of them across all of Tongan's Islands Group to assist, I guess, in the needs assessments. Moving quite quickly to Papua New Guinea, also want to highlight the fantastic work of Mavis Tito, who's the National Director of Caritas Papua New Guinea. She covers 22 provinces, has oversight of just under 20 staff working in IHD, peacebuilding, disaster and relief management, and of course research and advocacy. And I really wanted to highlight in particular the work that they're doing with the Luhan Home for Girls. So for over 11 years, this refuge home for girls has provided a safe and a family environment for at-risk girls who come from very difficult backgrounds, such as forced marriages, sorcery, abuse, and serious health problems. And the mission is to provide a really well-balanced education, including human, intellectual, spiritual formation in a family environment, as well as provide vocational skills in cooking, sewing, textile, sports, and more, in order just to really form a holistic wraparound service and provide a happy and independent future for girls who otherwise most likely wouldn't have it. Also really quickly, wanting to shoot over to Timor-Leste to Mana Dosha Kisi, who's the director of Hafoti. So Hafoti provides economic opportunities for women in rural areas and empowers women to participate in the public sphere. So the goal of this is to really improve the well-being of rural Timorese women through economic empowerment. And it intentionally targets Timorese women living in remote rural towns and villages who have limited schooling and transferable skills. So what I find fascinating is that one of the byproducts of being able to establish provincial production centres that assist them in their economic livelihoods, is that these centres also actually provide a neutral and a safe meeting space, which means that beyond the economic empowerment work, that these centres have also been able to facilitate extensive community outreach and the inclusion of non-members in community meetings and discussions, especially around gender-related challenges and household economics of living in remote rural Timor-Leste, alongside also providing appropriate space to operate multiple local-led activities and initiatives. Finally, I want to just loop round back to Kiribati and just give a shout out to Ioana Taraya, who's the director of Te Toingina, which is a women NGO. And again, this is a women, all women core team, and their work really is around the recognition of the key role of women as primary decision makers in the household in terms of food and nutrition choices for their family. So really supporting them to improve the health and well-being of themselves, their families through education and providing alternatives. So in this initiative, we see women taking leadership roles and providing this training to primarily other women and young people. And I really just wanted to give a quick snapshot in the interest of time of some of the really great good news initiatives that are happening in the Pacific, and just really just in some of those examples, and there's so many more, you can see that the story, the good news story, is really about women as builders of solidarity, as bringers of their community together, as creators of safe spaces and of women empowering other women. And so thank you for the opportunity to share the good news from Oceania. Malo apito.
Thank you so much for now. I think Caritas Australia actually has as one of its values courage. And so it was really lovely to hear from you some of the stories of courageous women leadership in our region. And no doubt there's examples throughout the Confederation more broadly demonstrating that courage. And I know definitely during emergencies, we see that now in Ukraine and elsewhere. So thanks for now for joining us. We now have the opportunity to hear from Jeannie Curano, who's the Humanitarian Program Lead at Caritas Philippines. Now, I'm aware she is having some network issues, so we will hope that she is able to connect.
Hello, Kirsty.
Wonderful.
I am in the ground right now, so that's why my connectivity is really a challenge. So anyway, since I am in the ground, so what I'm going to share with you is really what's happening in the ground today. So what I'm going to share is some of the local practices and the success stories and the community wherein women are the leaders. And can I share some video? Just 3-minute videos. That's a very short clip. Will that be okay? Okay. Yeah. I think Steph, are you there, Steph? Can you just share?
Yes.
And we can cut the video. And thank you, Steph. And we can just cut it after maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Poverty in the country has become a never-ending cycle passed down through generations as continued neglect, disempowerment, discrimination, and dehumanization become the norm in these communities. In 2014, Alay Kapwa program and Caritas Italiana launched the Alay Kapwa Integral Evangelization, Resource Mobilization, and Livelihood Development Program. This sought to implement the self-help group program in 4 partner pilot dioceses: Diocese of Tagum, Diocese of Naval, Diocese of Ilagan, and the Apostolic Vicariate of Puerto Princesa. The self-help groups is an informal association of poor women in these communities, composed of 15 to 20 members. They voluntarily come together to make small, regular savings contributions over a few months until they have enough capital to begin lending to needy members.
During the orientation of the SHAGE program, inaangkin nila yung programa sa kanila yun eh. It is very opposite when it comes to the outlook of the dole out kasi galing sa kanila talaga. Yung puhunan sa kanila, hindi sa ibang tao.
SHEG has a broad anti-poverty agenda. This includes developing leadership abilities, skills training in micro-entrepreneurship, improving households, partnerships with schools, and building strong communities.
Tinulungan po ako ng mga SHEG member ko. Nagkaroon ako ng puhunan po, kaya ngayon nagluluto na po ako ng mani. Mahirap po dati kasi nagsasaka lang po kami. Sa isang araw 150, 200 ganun po. Dito sa pagmamani po isang sako po nakukuha po akong kumita ng 2,000 po.
SHEG allows the poor to find more opportunities to serve others, transforming them into better Christians and human beings. Parish priests have seen the deepening of faith among their respective parishes as a result of active participation in the SHEG program among parishioners.
Dati, madalas kami nag-aaway, gawa kami siya na walang pera. Ngayon, nakasali na kami sa SHEG at binigyan kami ng Panginoon ng blessing, nakahiram kami at makakain na rin kami. Gawa ng SHEG. Malaki talagang tulong yun sa amin. Hindi na kami nag-aaway, nagmamahalan na kami forever. Dati hindi pa kami nakasali ng SHEG, sa isang taon, kaisa lang kami nagsisimba. Ngayon, nakasali kami linggo-linggo na.
As members of self-help groups form a bond with each other, they find meaning and purpose in their lives. As they start sharing their problems with the group, social issues are discussed and they develop trust. They then become empowered to create solutions based on each other's needs.
Blackout kami kasi talagang sunog lahat yung mga listahan namin.
Okay. Okay, so I think, that's it. Christine, can I continue?
Yes, please
Okay,
do.
now, okay, sorry, it's getting dark in here. Okay, I am in the car, sorry, I'm traveling in the ground. Okay, now Caritas Philippines really responds to the various phases of the emergency. This is from the relief phase, so the early recovery, and including capacity building. And the one that you've seen earlier in the video is what we call the SHEG formation. That's the self-help group. It's actually a community savings group wherein we empower women. And the other one is what we call the CMIL. CMIL is the community-led monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. Now, although the formation is not only for the emergency phase, this is actually integrated in the development work as well. Now, as mentioned, SHEG really is an effective strategy in magnifying the mission of the Caritas in reaching out to the people in their utmost need to get out from their poverty. Now, it is a program of liberating the likely capacity and capability of the poor, especially the women who are deprived of choices, rights, opportunity, and often recipient of the discrimination, disparity, and of course, the displacement. And the one that I also mentioned is about the CMIL. Now, this is quite interesting because as we are popularizing the safeguarding, so our CMIL is the community, as I mentioned, community-led monitoring, evaluation, and accountability and learning. They are our eyes and ears in the ground. This is the establishment of mechanism to ensure the resiliency of the community level. Now, this is the operational mechanism of monitoring and ensuring that the communities of their program are really achieve and impact in terms of a prerequisite to measure the resiliency of the certain community. Primarily, the function of the CMIL, they are the catalyst, as they ensure that the community, the local government units, and even the church are cohesive and complementing each other in terms of a certain project or an activity, and especially in responding to an emergency. So they participated in a social preparedness, and of course, to really readily grasp the concept and context of the project. So as always mentioned, the CMIL are our eyes and ears in the ground. So they are our first responder, our reporters, and in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and even during the typhoon, they are the one who responds. When our dioceses or us even here at the Caritas cannot go to the ground, they are the one who's going to be there because they are the one who's already formed. So the role of the woman is very prominent in the grounds. So we continually empower them by providing them voices. They are now the voice of the voiceless. So that's very much ensure in the women empowerment in the community. So that's it, Christine.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. My phone is filled with messages from Caritas Australia staff, amazed, I think, at your commitment of dialing into this webinar this evening from your car in the field. And I think perhaps you have just shown to everyone what Fanau was talking about before, the fact that women just roll up their sleeves and get things done. So thanks, Jeannie. We really we really appreciate your passion and your commitment to join us this evening.
Dark in here.
Yes, I can see that.
It's getting dark in here right now.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeannie. Well, that comes to the end of our panel this evening. We've now heard from all of the speakers. And so now there's an opportunity for our panelists to ask any questions that any of you might have. And the best way for you to do that is to pop your questions into the chat box so that we can read them out to the panelists. And while I wait for our first question, I'll just note that there's been some beautiful comments coming through the chat, I think, acknowledging the fact that while there are still barriers and a lot of bias, that there's a lot of good work being done across our Confederation in amplifying the voice of women, and in particular of women leaders. We have a question that's come through from Sophie Jenkins, who's thanked all the presenters today, and she's noted that she was struck by the quote, "How we emerge from it is up to us," recognising that COVID-19 is a potential catalyst for positive change if we harness this moment in time. And so Sophie's asking if any of our speakers would like to respond to the question of what they see as the key opportunities for us to strengthen the role and the visibility of women as we emerge from the pandemic. Does anyone who was on the panel today want to try and answer that question?
I can do, Kirsty, if you don't mind. I can start with this.
Wonderful, Marta.
Yeah, because I was talking about this proposal, no, especially from because of the COVID Commission has this mandate, to prepare the future. And I think one of the big opportunities for the women has now is the role of technologies, because many women has been apart from the work, they cannot access to job places, also because not only because of the access physically to that, but for the role of the family, other commitments, they are taking care of the house, taking care of the families, taking care of the old people, so there's, but the new technologies, and thanks, in this case, thanks to the pandemic and the transition to working from home, other ways of working, new ways of the future of work, I think there are many opportunities for women to enter in the market, the job market, through the technologies, because now it's more easy, more usual to work from home, to connect and to do your job. And for many women that cannot, don't have any possibility to work or to go outside house to do another, it's a new opportunity and they have to be ready to that. And so maybe it's training for technologies is important now for women to have access to this training, to be able to join these opportunities, especially in the job market through but training is super important. And maybe which also one of our projects, no, can be addressing these needs now for especially the women.
Thank you.
A quick answer.
Thank you, Marta. I think you did. I'm just wondering actually if we have Abe Constantin back, because I did note that he was cut out earlier. So I'm not sure if he's managed to connect again. I'll just ask the question and see. No. Okay. I think we probably now will finish up
Non,
the
je suis
web.
connecté.
Oh.
Je suis connecté. OK. Bon, ben, j'étais vers la fin donc de ma présentation. Donc, je disais que les femmes sont des leviers de solidarité, de mobilisation, sensibilisation dans les communautés. J'avais pris donc 2 exemples et j'étais en train de parler donc de l'exemple de la valorisation des produits forestiers non ligneux, qui fait que c'est elles qui aujourd'hui sont à l'avant-garde pour défendre les forêts et l'écosystème qui se trouve au niveau donc des villages. Et comment cela se fait-il? C'est que les femmes valorisent de plus en plus les fruits donc, de ces cueillettes au niveau donc, des communautés, que ce soit le karité, que ce soit aussi donc le néré ou d'autres fruits. Elles les transforment d'abord en association, ce qui crée une solidarité entre elles, et puis elles arrivent à vendre cela, les produits transformés, ce qui fait donc non seulement de l'emploi à l'échelle village, mais aussi donc des sources de revenus. Et à cause de cela, bien qu'elles soient amenées à aller chercher du bois mort, c'est elles qui sont à l'avant-garde pour sensibiliser en vue donc de la sauvegarde donc, de l'environnement autour donc, des villages. C'est par cela que j'achevais et je disais que donc c'est à travers donc, les mobilisations de ressources qu'elles font aujourd'hui pour pouvoir prendre en charge certaines réparations, notamment au niveau donc, des pompes, au niveau des villages, qu'elles sont un levier donc, de mobilisation et de sensibilisation, et que aussi dans la défense de l'environnement, elles sont aussi, voilà, donc une clé qui nous permettent donc d'espérer un avenir meilleur. Voilà. Bon, merci de m'avoir donné la parole pour pouvoir achever donc cette allocution. Merci bien. Merci à Kirsty et merci à tout le monde.
Thank you, merci. I'm very grateful for the interpreters as my French is limited. So I was pleased that I was able to understand what you were saying. And I think it was good for us to be able to hear from you, because I think a lot of what you were talking about with that intersection between women, the protection of the poor and the environment was actually similar to the message that we heard both from the Australian ambassador and also from Masamba right at the beginning of today's webinar. So in a way, a good closure to the webinar to sort of come full circle. So I'm glad that your connection was restored and we were able to hear the end of your presentation today. So I think with that, we will close our webinar this evening. I think it's been a wonderful evening of sharing the good news of our Confederation, and really an opportunity for us all to be inspired by the work that is taking place across the world. And I leave with some deep gratitude in my heart for the wonderful speakers who took the time to prepare and then join with us this evening, and to the wonderful women across our Confederation and the wonderful men who support the women of our Confederation. We'll also thank the interpreters and the IT staff who sit behind a webinar like this and make it possible. So thank you. I will hand back now to Stephanie.
Great. Thank you, Kirsty. And I just echo all of the thanks to everybody, to our speakers for your really inspirational and powerful testimonies and words, really just showing so clearly the role that women play, the key role, as Father Constantin repeated several times, the key role that women play. Some really key words for me that stuck out during today's webinar were the words fearless and resilience, and the idea which every single speaker touched upon was that women are not just passive victims, but protagonists of the solutions. I think every single speaker really showed that so clearly. So thank you. And thank you to you all for participating and joining and for your questions. We will save the chat box as well, so that if any questions weren't answered, we can hopefully keep the discussion going beyond just this event today. So I'm very pleased to finish by telling you about our next webinar, which is next Tuesday, the 29th of March at 2:30 p.m. Rome time. This is our final webinar in our Caritas Celebrates Women month. So I really hope as many of you will be able to join us as possible for this finale. We will be talking in this next webinar about women as builders of future. So looking back on these first 3 webinars that we've had, but also looking ahead, what's next? Because this isn't just a closed event which will finish after March 2022. We hope that this will be really the start of showing how women have a key role to play as builders of a new humanity post-pandemic, and in the turbulent situation in which our world finds itself. And yeah, so we will be looking really more closely at how we can walk together, as Marta was saying, in a really synodal way, how we can keep that listening and dialogue process going, walking together for equality, encounter, and renewal. You can find more information on the caritas.org website, and for members of Caritas also on the intranet Baobab system. So it just remains for me to close by thanking Kirsty also for your fantastic moderation and chairing of this whole event. Thank you all for taking part, and we hope to see you at the next one. Thanks.